It's Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of Hashtag Event Icons, presented by Endless Events, the show where you get to ask the icons of the events industry anything. So, you might be wondering, how do you get to ask questions? All you have to do is use the question panel on the right of GoToWebinar to submit your questions. Or you can hop on Twitter to submit your questions with the hashtag EventIcons. We'll be answering your questions live during the entire show. Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better conversation we can have. So please help share hashtag EventIcons on Twitter and Facebook. Just tell your friends to watch at www.event-icons.com. Now, without any further delay, this is hashtag Event Icon with your hosts, Will Curran of Endless Events, Laura Lopez of Social Tables, and Brant Kruger of Event Technology Consulting.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Will, and I am joined by the very, very lovely
Laura Lopez.
We timed that very horribly. Unfortunately, Brant is on an airplane today. He's not joining us, but that means more for me and Laura to ask this amazing guest we have in the studio today. Laura, do you want to kind of introduce our amazing guest that we have today?
Yes. You all may know him as potentially the Chuck Norris of the events industry, or just, whoa, what is that? Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Is that your own action figure?
The only guy with his own action figure
in the
in the events
in
industry.
the events industry with his own action figure. He is all over social media. He is the one and only Nick Borelli. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. This is a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of the show, and I'm excited to be on it again. I got the real pleasure last time with being on it with two people that I respect amazingly, and now I'm on with two other people that I respect a lot as well, and I get to be able to give you whatever you want you can get.
Well, that's why I think the show is going to be awesome, is you, the audience, are going to ask and pick Nick's brain. I know a lot of you are going to have questions for him because he is such a legend and icon of this events industry and the master of social media and marketing, and is pretty much at every single industry event you could ever think of. So, if you haven't got a chance to meet Nick, this is your chance to ask him your deepest question. So, yes, as Laura said, thank you for being on the show, Nick. I'm super excited to have you here. If you didn't get a chance, watch I think it's the 2017 Event Trends episode that we had in December. I really wish I remember the number off the top of my head, but Nick was in that one as well. So go back and watch that one if you haven't already. But we want to have Nick on his own episode because he is so legendary. So I want to jump right on in and tell everyone a little bit about your background and kind of what got you, I guess, to where you are today doing the marketing consulting and the deep leadership that you're doing today.
I feel like it's actually a really linear path, so but extremely granular. So I took every little tiny baby step you could possibly make in the events industry, and I definitely started at the bottom, and now I'm here. So at age 14, I had the opportunity to be a dishwasher for a catering company. My dad was in charge of the picnics for his shop at this venue. It was like 1,000 people thing, so he had some pull, enough pull to say, put my kid to work. And it was seasonal work, so they had the opportunity to work full-time at 14 because in Pennsylvania, we have Amish people, so it's pretty relaxed on child labor. So I did that for a couple seasons to the degree that I was in management. I was 16 managing 14-year-olds, and I learned a lot about management even then. I mean, truly, I have an example of a story where I told this 14-year-old as I was 16, hey man, I got to run back and get something from the kitchen. Can you watch this buffet? And he said, yeah, absolutely. I came back 10 minutes later, and every single Schaefer totally empty. People are freaking out. Where's our food? I go, man, what happened? Guy goes, I was watching the buffet. It's all out, by the way. I'm like, cool. I just learned something. Number one, it's always all my fault as a manager. And number two, be very specific in what you say if you're talking to somebody that doesn't, know what they're doing, which is a lot of people. So at that point, actually, I went from that catering company to another catering company where I was like a captain. I went from a captain to the catering manager, and then I worked for another catering company where I was in charge of about 5 or 6 different venues. I did all logistics, and I was hired to move. I moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania from Erie, Pennsylvania, and I did on-premise logistics to a venue that was just being built by a chef owner because he had no front of the house experience. So I was the front of the house guy, he was the back of the house guy, and did some really awesome boutique events. Like average plate was like between 150 and 200 bucks a plate for weddings in Pittsburgh.
Really quick, Nick, do you think that was kind of like the start? Because I mean, you're very outgoing, very like you would say like A-type personality. You're very social. Do you think that was kind of the start of like the start of it was, hey, you had to interact with people in the front of house?
100%. I mean, I was in the back of the house for a while, and it was just people thought it was squandering my ability to gab. So yeah, for sure. And then I'll be honest, the reason I went from logistics to sales was simply the fact that the clients had to deal with me anyway, and the guy I was working for was like, you know what, if they like you better than they like the salesperson, so maybe we should just make you the salesperson. I'll save $1 because you're young, and I'll pay you less money, and you can be in sales. And I said, sure. And I just learned everything I could about sales, a lot of it on the job of being the person under a salesperson for years and years, and the rest of it I just devour books. Like I read a book a week, and I didn't go to college. I could never do education in any fashion that wasn't exactly what I wanted to learn. But if I want to learn it, I'll read everything there is to know about it, and I will ask everybody who does it just directly because I have no shame. And sponge things. But if you tell me you have to learn something that you have to know how to do and I don't want to do it, I can't. Like I can't. So I'm a specialist because I have no other way to live. But yeah, so I went into sales for a long time and ended up managing a sales team and then ended up de facto marketing because we had an agency, and I ended up like mostly doing it anyway. And so that's all that, right? And that's my job from, let's say, 14 to 22, 23. My side hustle, because I think a lot of us can respect having a side hustle, is that in like 1995 I started building websites. And in the off season of catering, like that was my money that I would be able to make, and I shifted most of my focus to projects around that. And I got into being online around 91, 92, text-only browsing, just talking about Next Generation episodes that just came out. 93 was a big year for me because X-Files debuted, and I got on the Usenet, and I was, are these words tracking for millennials? Usenet, Lycos, web crawler? No? Okay. So you see, the internet, I got paid at like 15 or 16 years old to go to a car dealership to essentially consult on how to set up everyone's email addresses and what the internet was. And they had like a lot of questions like, where is it? And I was just a kid. Like I was just a kid. Like everywhere I've been, like for the first like 15 years of my career, it's just they hired me because I was the kid. And now that I'm like not just a kid anymore, it's like, ooh, I better actually have merit of my own, because I was just the token young guy. So anyways, eventually,
do you think being the token young guy helped you out a lot?
I used to lie about how old I was to make myself look older because, or I would fuzz the details or line through omission because I was like 22 and I was handling events that were in the hundreds of thousands, and nobody wants that to happen, right? So I would just kind of fuzz it, and maybe that's probably when I grew my beard and just do whatever I could to like not. Now I can kind of go backwards. I'm like, maybe I should dye my gray hairs, but there was a point where it was all about that. It was like, I had the ability to do that stuff because I focused, really specifically on what I did, and I loved it, and I had passion for it, and that's how I won people over. And won people over the fact that I was so young. Big revelatory moment is when I was in Pittsburgh. Is that I like 11 years ago I went to Cater Source. First time I went to a conference that was outside of my region. First time I was ever exposed to people outside my region. So if you stay just in the area you're in, eventually you'll either will be or you'll think you're the best in your area. As soon as you get exposed to people who are amazingly excellent, you either have like a shift in thought one way or the other. You go, holy crap, I went out, I can never do this, or man, I want to be as good as those people. So I took the latter, and I got inspired by these amazing event professionals. Like if I want to name drop, which I'm really good at, Joy Wallace, Meryl Snow, Pauline Perry, Jen DeLay. These are in the catering world. These are names, right? There's all these silos in the event industry, but in catering, the International Catering Association was the first association I joined, because these people who I saw everybody else trying to gravitate towards, and I would just sit on the outside of their conversations and listen, they were all members of this association. So I was like, well, I guess part of my career is to now be around people who are great, go to these national things, and I guess I should be a part of something bigger, like an association. So I joined the ICA, which, I still keep my ICA badge right here. I made a lot of connections that I still have to this day, and it just taught me the idea that community is so important in this industry. And I don't know. Anyways, I got my education finally when I went to that conference, and then when I started having these conversations, I met Mike Roman, who was the founder of CaterSource. He had a standing thing on Fridays. He had 2-hour blocked. If anybody called him, whoever the first person that called him, he would talk as long as they wanted for those 2 hours. And I did it every time. Picked his brain, asked him scenarios, had him tell me stories, just sucked off of him. If you go to Facebook, my Facebook profile says, "Where do you go to school?" It just says Mike Roman. He passed away a couple of years ago. Amazing guy. I mean, I got so much from him. I've read his books over and over and over again. But it's true. Like, I went to school at Mike Roman. And so anyways, everything I have is because of people who could get nothing from me, gave to me in this industry. So in my trajectory, there was different tipping points, and the one that was really like the biggest one was attending a conference. It was in my industry outside of that. And then I decided at a certain point with social media, specifically in web design, because I was always doing that digital communication and live events, there was something there to be able to merge them together. And I'm a communicator. I like communicating in person. I like communicating online. I just like talking. I like sharing and absorbing. So I decided that I wanted to be somebody who could give back to the event industry how I got things. And the only way that I thought I was special was being a person of these two worlds. So I started a trajectory to be able to be someone who could help as many people as possible, which to me meant consulting. So I worked for a couple places after that in different aspects of the industry. I told them I wasn't going to be around a long time. It's just a tour of duty. I think in the tech community that's a phrase, right?
It is, yeah.
But I was on the other side. I read a lot. So, but the difference of that phrase, how it's being used, like I used it to my employer. I was like, I'm going to go into your business. I want to be able to understand your systems. I want to be able to create new systems, test them, and then once they're sustainable, I got nothing to do. I'm bored, right? So I'll create an SOP that will survive me, and so your investment won't be just thrown away, and I'll go on to the next thing. So I went from that to entertainment, to an entertainment brand that had 4 different entertainment brands, to then a hard AV company that worked internationally on exhibitions, and I decided that I had enough, education. Kevin White's a friend of mine. He told me that there's people that are professional students and there's people that go out and do. He said, you're on the tipping point of being a professional student. Go out and do something. So I took the plunge with the help of a lot of my friends who became my first clients, and I'm out there as a free agent working for really, really diverse people.
So when people ask you, what do you do? How would you describe what you do for event professionals all the time?
Yeah, so I basically have 2 main verticals, if you want to call it like that. I either I help event producers and events, and I help event suppliers with their marketing. So for events, I help them either sell more tickets, increase the engagement, digital engagement, or I help them create. And this is going to get kind of dry and boring, but maybe exciting for you too. Additional data points that they can use and then be able to interpret that data for creative purposes to be able to help them with their long-term objectives. So I layer digital engagement on top of live engagement for events. And then the other half of what I do is I meet with everyone from caterers to DJs, AV companies, any kind of supplier whatsoever, and I help them, give them the tools they need to succeed in marketing, and then I get out of the way. I'm not an agency, I don't do the work for you, nor do I want you to be dependent on me. I want to teach you to fish, and I want to say, go do it, which is refreshing for some people. Other people just want somebody to do it, and that's fine. I can give those people the tools too, but I really think that a lot of people have the talent in their organizations and the tools. They just don't have the strategy. And I come in for a fixed amount of, depending on how much help they need to get over whatever hump they need, give them the rule book for success. And then I enable people to be able to, be the best they can be.
Sorry, if I can jump in there. Are you seeing a commonality between things that these companies who are hiring you, what they're asking you to do? It's obviously not going to be straight across the board, but is it, maybe in the way of new technologies where they say, you know what, we just really need somebody to walk us through why Snapchat for events is so important, or why should I be using Facebook or Twitter? Are you seeing like a commonality? And if so, what is that?
The commonality I'm seeing is that for the last 4 or 5 years, especially on the event supplier end, people that are marketing their brand, is that they jumped in on the deep end and just started working on everything. They just started posting on Facebook and posting on Twitter and posting on Instagram, and they got into a rut because they were just either copying behaviors that they saw other industries do or just reflexive. And what I find is there's two stories. One, we don't have, our agency doesn't understand events. Okay, so I translate between them and their agency to give them, somewhere in between. Or more often, our younger employees who we threw into this social media thing, even though they wanted to be sales or want to be something else, understand the platforms. They're natives, but they don't understand strategically how to create campaigns for success. So I think that they feel bad, these people. That's the thing I see the most common is well-meaning people out of college who want to get in the events industry or who are told the best way to do that or not. They're thrown into that, just end up doing the social media and email and website and blogging. They're doing it, but they're not seeing the return on investment because they're not doing it, knowing what the 5 steps ahead are or what cumulatively they're trying to achieve because they don't understand how to, think in those terms.
So you'd say that they're thinking more tactically versus strategically.
Yeah, I mean, it's goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics. They go right to the tactics part. Yeah. They skip the process. And it's a discovery process that you have to think holistically, or you're just doing things. You're keeping busy. And for a while, for years, I think the keeping busy felt good because, look, I got to be on Facebook. Everyone else is on Facebook. He's on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I got to be on it. And they thought that was enough. And then they realized that some people, competitors, were actually getting traction off of it, and they weren't. And they didn't understand why. They were doing it. And the difference was that there just wasn't purpose because they didn't define their specific objectives that they needed to move the ball forward.
So, I was curious to know, like, you're obviously on like a lot of these social media networks. Before we get into like the tactics of it, is there a reason why people shouldn't be on social media, or is there, how do people decide, like, build out their strategy a little bit? Obviously, other than working with you to figure out what that strategy looks like, but how would you say, like, is there a couple questions people can simply ask to start thinking about what their strategy should be?
For sure. I never tell everybody to be on everything unless they have the assets to be able to produce at the same level of quality consistently. That's your line. If you can be on 4 platforms and produce the quality all at an A level consistently, you could be on 4 for different reasons potentially. But before you even get into that, you have to understand the platforms. You have to understand the demographics on the platforms, how people behave on those platforms, to determine if that even makes sense for you. So to give you an example, I was doing some consulting yesterday with Experian. They do large-scale conferences, a lot of association work. Their parent company, Merritt's, does some really amazing corporate events too, globally. We were going through them all, and it was like, look, Pinterest exists. I can tell you ways you can use Pinterest. Snapchat exists. I can tell you ways you can use Snapchat. If you have finite resources, I'm going to tell you that if you put this much in, you're only going to get this much out. If you've got a lot of resources, yeah, diversify, put your eggs in a lot of different baskets and whatever. But if you have finite resources, let's fish where the fish are. Let's see where the most impact probably will be. But the bottom line for everything, which no one ever wants to hear, is most of my job is strong hypothesis backed up by test and measure. People want me to tell them when should I post, how often should I post, and I have the big numbers for you. They're big numbers. They're across the board. I can tell you some numbers anecdotally that are industry specific. Answer is always where you should be, how often you should do it. Trust your numbers. Do it for a while, see what the return is, and make an assessment of that. It's not a fun answer because it requires work, but I'll tell you, all successful marketing, it's just work.
And what's a good amount of time for anybody who's watching today or watching the replay? What's a good amount of time that somebody who's pretty new to social media should use as sort of a framework for testing something brand new out? That's
a fair question because you can test forever and never actually do anything. In any kind of testing environment, you want to be able to reduce as many variables as possible. That's key. So you don't want to be able to be like maybe in a peak buying cycle and compare it against something that is against a peak buying cycle for a specific vertical, for instance. So you want to reduce as many variables as possible. Try to do it in a time that's like a good testing area. Like when you have the most leads coming in or you have the least leads coming in, but be consistent with it. But if I had to make a blanket statement, you can get some pretty decent data off of participation in social media. It's most of the time, if it's a whole platform you want to dive into and you're pretty aggressive about it, you could probably see at least enough indicators to determine what your momentum will be in 6 months to a year. It sounds like a lot, but 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you didn't build up enough momentum, and no one understands what your brand is about on that platform. Like Event Icons, for instance, you do 5 episodes of this, and no one's like, of course, it's Event Icons. It's always this, it's always that. This is what I come to expect from it. I trust it. On the 6th one, it's not enough. Like you had to build up enough equity to be able to be trusted. And I think that that's what you have to do with equity in investment in time. You need to invest enough time that you can look at it and say, I understand that, like at this point, people understand what we're giving them, and they're just not reacting to it.
Interesting.
So it's an investment, but that's a whole platform investment. And I'll be honest with you, some platforms are really easy just to discount wholeheartedly based on the limited resources you have. You know, it's like how many hours would I tell you to, or how many weeks would I tell you, hours, to test Tumblr for your I don't know, AV company? I would say don't even bother. You know, like that's if you have somebody that can guide you with enough intuition that can say like binary responses like yes, no. But can you get some forward progress off of Snapchat for your brand? I'm going to tell you that like right now it's really, really hit and miss, but there are some awesome hits out there, and there's some really flat misses. So it just depends on once you get to a feeling that you've actually done something that is a testable product that people can either trust and it's not going to change, and people understand what they're in for at this point, then you can start making some determinations if it's actually giving you ROI.
Go ahead, Laura. You have a great question, I'm sure.
I was going to say, just that brings me to a really good point here. Speaking of trust and building up trust and sort of building up that repetition so that people know what to expect when they visit your Twitter or your Tumblr or your Facebook page. In light of some of the big social media mishaps that have happened, on Twitter and things like that, and because trust it can be broken so easily, what's a way that if there was maybe a mishap with an event planner, they put on an event, there was something that happened, and everybody tweeted it. What's a way that that brand can work towards rebuilding their social media reputation?
So here's what I don't see enough. I don't see enough vulnerability in those responses. If you issues a letter, that says we're not going to punch people in the face and drag them out of a plane anymore. Letters are cold. Letters are, there's no motion. If I own that company, or own the company, Mr. United, if I was the CEO of that company, right, and I knew that I was negatively affecting people like that, I would flip my phone like this in that moment. And no, this is, I mean, at a level that big, it's not going to happen like that, right? They're going to have too many hands, and there's going to be too much, and all of a sudden they're going to do half measures, and that's what you get as a piece of paper. But if I was a company that didn't have a million different, rubber stamps that had to approve everything, if I was a business owner, I would talk directly to a video, and I would release that video, and I would show vulnerability, and I would show that it hurts me, and that it's something that is, I would talk about my history with why I did what I did. I would talk about my mission and how that violated that, and how that I'm going to give you every step in the way, and I'm going to continue with these messages until we get to a point of equilibrium where the trust is returned. So showing some vulnerability and showing that you actually care, it goes a long way, and you'd be surprised how little you see that. You just see either half measures or whatever the corporate minimum is for, ways to, I guess, reverse that. And an event planner, I mean, I know event planners. They did not get in this for the money. They got into this because they want to impact people's lives. And if something happens that they did that transgressed through any number of variables that can happen in a given event, they just have to reiterate where they come from, what their mission is, why they're here, and make an earnest plea to be, given a second chance. And I think that in that format, in any format, if you do that face-to-face, the best. Short of face-to-face, we got stuff like this, and this isn't bad. It's not bad.
I think that's such a timely conversation to have for sure. My question for you, to take a step back towards the kind of staying on top of everything, right? You're everywhere. You're on every platform. You know what's up. You know what you like.
15 open windows right
So
now.
my question to you is, originally the question was going to be that someone asked is, how do you keep up with all the platforms? But obviously we've determined, hey, not every new platform is perfect for everyone. But better yet, how do you stay on top of everything? The news, the different, knowing that event icons is happening this day. What's your kind of workflow for managing all the news, all the inputs, all the data that you're getting?
So I use project management. I don't understand people that don't. I've been using Basecamp for a decade. You can use whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Use something. Use whatever you use consistently is the right piece of technology, period. So organize your life in a way that gives you time for things like being inspired, time for things like breaks in your life, and constantly shift those priorities, because whatever you plan doesn't matter. And that's why I like Basecamp. I'm constantly moving up and down the hierarchy of what's important. So how do I keep up with the news? People ask me, what do you read? What do you read to keep up? I'm like, I read Google Alerts. That's it. I am pretty good with a couple different websites I end up with all the time, but I have very specific phrases that I look for all the time on Google Alerts. And it's people's names. A lot of people I know, anything, because most people use Google Alert for narcissistic, purposes, or just I want to make sure that somebody says my name out there. Well, I have like 50 or 60 names of people I know that are in Google Alerts, because guess what? If they get some kind of accolade or if something bad happens to them, I want to be on there first. So there's that. But beyond that, I have phrases like Snapchat marketing, Snapchat ROI, Instagram for events. I mean, it's like probably about 100 different Google Alerts set at different frequencies with rules that go in different folders. So I don't live a life of you know, I talk about earlier this week I saw the inbox of Alex Plaxton and talk about anxiety, you know, whatever number he's at in the tens of thousands. You know, I have like 15 or 10 and it's bad, right? Everything goes in there. I don't like inboxes as to-do lists. I like it as an inbox. Yeah, I turn my Google Alerts with rules into specific areas, and then my calendar says, this is the time you schedule this content, this is the time you read about this is that, and my day's pretty granular. So I have two different types of days. I have travel days, and I have office days. My office days are filled up with either phone calls or they're pretty granularly organized the things I have to do and what I read about.
I love the like travel days versus office days.
It's a different mentality, and it's just that's personal. It's just I do work on the road, of course, all the time, as you can respect and you guys understand. But I can't focus the same way. I can't, like, I write for a event manager blog. I can't write an article on the road. Can't. Just limitation to me. Can't do it. Could if I wanted to, probably, but it just wouldn't be organic. But here I can, and I'm working on one tonight, like, because I can. There's just certain things I know that when I'm on the road, it's a different type of work I can do, and it ends up being like content scheduling, easy. I can do that in my sleep. Content curation, I can do in my sleep. Reading, I can do. I probably do in my sleep. So stuff like that, I end up like, if I'm traveling, I'm reading all the time. I have my headphones in, I'm listening to books. I have like those AirPods, so I'm like literally walking around conferences in between stuff with my headphones on. You guys know Alan Berg?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a road warrior,
I met him.
right? Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah. I met him at Cater Source.
Yeah, he's so inspiring to me as someone who presents, because he's at the tippy top of his game. But he in between stuff and in United Club in the airports for the last 4 years, he taught himself Spanish while he was on the road. And guess what? He is constantly speaking in Latin America now because he taught himself Spanish. So like I respect that so much. Like he understood that in that space, in that time, he knew that that's a great place for him to be able to do that kind of stuff, because he could just walk and talk, and you'd see him. Like, you think he was a crazy person walking around in circles in United Club, but he was teaching himself Spanish.
Awesome.
That's incredible. Yeah. For anybody who's watching this, look up Alan Berg. He's amazing. Go catch him at Cater Source. He's probably speaking at TSE. Or
Wedding MBA.
Yeah, he's all over the place as well.
Great sales guy, for sure.
Yeah. So speaking of speakers, this brings me to a good point. So you're a very prolific speaker yourself, right? And so I see you pretty much everywhere. And so, I mean, you're speaking at ILEA chapters, MPI chapters, bigger conferences. You're obviously on the road all the time. So for somebody who is new to the speaking circuit, how can they really get the attention of an organization to teach them their expertise?
Yeah, well, at first, you have to be the go-to person for something that's in need and very specific. Later on, you have the ability to broaden out what you want to talk about, and eventually you potentially can get to the point where people just want to have you speak, and they tell you, what do you want to talk about? Like, that's where I'm at right now, which is great. But for a while, I was just talking about really tactical level social media stuff that was, it got boring for me because I just did it so much. I'm not that kind of presenter. So my friends that are presenters, like they think I'm crazy because a lot of them have like a really tight 2 or 3 presentations, and I think I have about 41 or 2 right now because I just do them custom. Yeah, I do them custom. So at Cater Source or TSC, if somebody gets sick, they'll hit me up. I can just run in there and do it. And I've done it. I did it this year. I'm just sitting on a bunch of them. So like anything, there's 10,000 hours as an answer, I guess. But the real answer of if it is you get confidence if you talk about something you already just know. So just do something that you're passionate about and because it'll be really effortless for you, and you won't think about the mechanics of what you're doing. You'll just do it. And once you start doing it for a while, then you can break down your own mechanics, and you can determine why that works. So for me, I'm not going to be a polished speaker. I'm just never going to be one. And I'm cool with it. I've got another book over here about not giving a swear word, and I don't know where we are with the ratings on this, but it's I'm that way, like I determine that like there's certain things I'm not trying to better myself at. I'm not going to try to be a polished speaker. So what I think I try to be, and I think I am naturally, is pretty disarming. I'm pretty easygoing, and I'm fairly chill, and I just want that experience to be had for everybody. If their guard is up, I just want to bring their guard down and make everybody just loose and comfortable, so we can talk like, in the crowd with them. I'm one of them. And so that was my methodology. But I'll tell you, I just did it reflexively for a while. I just jumped into leaned into the discomfort, jumped in, and then I determined, okay, what is my methodology? And then I actually worked to get it better by understanding what it was. But so I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedians are the most vulnerable public speakers, period. I mean, they are. And if you follow them and you watch them and their processes, you'll learn a lot. But all stand-up comedians do is they work a small room that's an open mic, and it's a small room, and you fail, so what? No one matters. It's there. They're all drunks, right? So you find your equivalent of that. So like for me, there's a early entrepreneurial incubator. I could go in there. I could help people. I could have like a little, what they call in stand-up comedy, it's called a tight five. It's exactly what you think it is. It's a tight 5-minute set. And I would figure out what my 10-minute, my 15-minute was, and I would build on that and build on that. And I got to a point where I was just, I was never scared of crowds, because the crowds I'm in front of are event people generally, and I get them. Like I am one of them. There's no pretension, and the pretentious ones I just discount wholeheartedly. Like I just don't even see them. So yeah, I mean, we're all salt of the earth people. Like I'm all B2B, so for me it's easy. I know my work, I know my audience. That's it.
Speaking of all the events that you speak in, do you have a favorite industry event or favorite industry events that you would say you like look forward to, that you think that everyone should go to? You want to talk a little bit about some of your favorites?
So I feel like I want to do a cop out, because I don't want to say, it's like, hey, Will, real quick though, who's your favorite client?
Probably.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I just putting you a little bit in my place right now, right? Because these are absolutely my clients too. So there's that. I will tell you, my favorite conference to go to is a conference I've never been to with an audience that's different than I normally go to. So last year, some of my favorite conferences I went to was the Florida Festival and Events Association, because outdoor festivals and fairs are absolutely part of the event industry, but like everything in the fractured, siloed event industry, you don't see a lot of intermingling between them and trade show exhibitors, right? Like a PCMA person doesn't know an ILEA person, maybe, but they certainly don't know the fair people, right? But I'm just interested, so I go to these things and I ask more questions of them. My cat's yelling at me. I ask more questions of them than maybe they even ask of me, because that's what I like at a conference is, even as a presenter, I'm in a really good place networking-wise, because people come up to me that I can ask them a ton of questions. But I really enjoyed that show last year because it was different for me. I like IBTM World and IMEX America because the scale of play is so high, and your likelihood of bumping into somebody who's just absolutely exceptional is just a lot higher, versus a conference that kind of skews itself more towards educating like 101 and people that are just getting into the industry. So at least from where I'm at, in a selfish way, like I enjoy being around people who are better than me. I loathe being the smartest person in the room. I don't often get to be that person, but I still don't like it. So put me in a room with people like way smarter than me, who are like doing things and are involved in the industry at like such a higher level than me. I'm just like, I want to go back to that point where I was 10 years ago at going to Cater Source, where everyone's so much better than me, so I could just be like, holy crap. So that's a bad answer, right? So anyways, I like IMEX, I like IBTM. They're direct competitors, so I just alienated myself twice. I'm neutral. I'll help anybody. And Cater was a special place in my heart because, it gave me my first shot speaking on a national level, a year after the first time I was there, which is a big deal. I've been doing that for 10 years now. And, and TSC as well, because it's just like, it's all my friends. I hate to say that. I'm totally discounting the whole experience of the special event by saying that, and this is also pretty terrible, I'm going to say this too, as someone who educates people, but the most impactful education I have comes between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 or 3 a.m. So if you're going to these conferences, I'm going to tell you soak up all the education in the day and have 3 Red Bulls, because where you get the most value is at night, because you can pick the brains of these people or just listen in on these conversations that you could just ask the person directly, Like my tactic at TSE now and Cater Source is a couple months before the event itself, I look at the list of speakers, I ask people who's attending, and I set up coffee meetings for a half an hour with people. I think even IMAX, you came in on a couple that I had down there. I get so much more value one-on-one. If people aren't willing to give it time, I totally respect that because it's very busy. But if I can get one-on-one time with people that are there, that's ROI, that you just, it's so valuable. Time
you should do a course on how to make the most of your time at a conference, because that's,
don't sleep. That's
yeah.
Step 1. And
I
step
did the
2,
technology breakfast. Yeah, I did the technology breakfast at Cater Source a couple years ago with Damani Daniel, who's a friend of mine, I was just actually with a couple days ago here, and we were Cater Source shouldn't know this, but hey, whatever. Linda retired. So I was at this party. It was like this private balcony party, and then you might know about this, Laura. That one that, yeah. And I was there till about 2:33, somewhere around there, and we were getting mic'd up at 5:30 to be able to practice. So I had between getting back there to my hotel room, taking a shower, I had 2 hours of sleep, and that was 1,000-person room. Oh. So I will say that if you're sick or tired, as soon as you're on a stage, you're not. You're just not.
It's so true.
It's so true. And it's game time for other professions too. It's probably like that for you in front of a client. There's a point where the sickness goes away. It is the cure, and if we could bottle that, we wouldn't, have to do anything. But yeah, I don't know. The confidence I have now speaking it's so much greater than it used to be, because I just talk about things I'm passionate about, and I get to talk about things I want to talk about. I'm speaking in Cincinnati next month, and they said, "What do you want to talk about?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's the best." I'm I know exactly what I want to talk about, and I'll make it worth your while. And it's the same thing I do when I go to a restaurant. It's a great restaurant. Maybe I'm the only one that does this. I don't know. I'm sure some other people do. Caterers do it. I just say I'm not squeamish. Whatever the chef wants to make today, that's what I want, because it's going to be better.
I like it. We got a great question from the audience. I know Laura wants to ask this one.
Yes, I'm excited about this one. So, what scares you in the industry? And it was very open-ended. So, do tell.
So many things. So many things, mostly because I care. If I didn't care, I would say, well, whatever, it's all good. There's a lot of stuff. I just did a presentation called Fixing the Macro Problems of the Event Industry, which I'm not equipped to do, and I wasn't the guy to do it. But I had a mic, and if you have a mic, people have to listen. So I just want to start a conversation. So I went through some bullet points there of fears I have for the event industry. One of them is everything that comes out of the fact that it's a low barrier to entry industry. There's not enough barriers, and because of that, it's dominated by side hustles, and it's dominated by people who are amateurs. And guess what? Most of us started as that too, so there's no way to just say ban them, right? Most of us had to fake it till we make it. And I think that, if I had to tackle that problem, which I don't think maybe you asked, so I can get away with just telling you my problems, I would say that there's kind of a zero to hero thing going on right now in the event industry. You're either a CMP or you're not. you're either a CSCP or you're not. And I want a model, if I could just, play chess with the entire industry, that would be more akin to martial arts. I want to see different levels of belts. I want to see a journeyman like a union, I was about to go down a union thing, but let's pretend everyone likes unions. As the AV person, hey, no comment. I want my knees. So they're great. And then if you don't like them, then email me. We can talk about that too. But they have a really defined process of steps that you have to be a master, and it's not just amateur and master. There's a journeyman process there, and I respect that, right? But I think that in our industry right now, it's dominated by people who are that. So that, and then the other thing I talk about a lot is staying in your lane. I have a real problem with people who think B+ is good enough. I have a real problem with people who think they could do 7 different things, and while they only do one really well, these are lines of profit, so we have to take them on. And I mostly think in my ideology in life that most people are good, which is sometimes pretty crazy philosophy to have. So I don't think it comes from greed. I think it comes from fear. If someone's willing to give you money, Will, to serve some ice cream, and these cups that you have, they glow in the dark, they blink, so it's kind of AV. So do you want to do ice cream? You've got a decision to make. Are you a caterer or are you an audiovisual? And you could say it's not a big deal, it's just one transaction. Well, now all of a sudden you got some momentum on it, now you're offering the stuff and you're having some food. And then the caterer's like, I don't want to recommend that company, like they're in catering. And now all of a sudden the communities are breaking down, everyone's enemies, or it seems like this industry is full of frenemies. We say we're friends with them, but really like we try to stab each other in the back. And it's because we should, if we acted like a community, we would just be specialists in what we do. We would be amazing at it because this is the thing we go to bed thinking about. This is the thing we wake up thinking about. That's our passion. And it wouldn't also have a photo booth. Does anybody know any event industry professional that doesn't also have a photo booth? Photographers have photo booths, videographers have photo booths, caterers have photo booths, venues. Everyone's got a photo booth. Every once in a while, I meet a photo booth professional. I'm like, I'm sorry. You're competing with everybody.
And then they're like trying to do photography and videography on the side too.
Of course they are. It's so on the level why I think that people look at our industry and they go, it's the party planner thing is still out there no matter how much we squash it, is that we fuel it by doing illegitimate actions like that, by not trying to be, like the dentists aren't going to look at your knee. They're just not. Come on, doctor. You're a doctor there. And he's like, yeah, no. Because that thing up there on the wall says I'm a dentist, and I will make a referral to someone who can fix your knee. And we don't think like that. We don't think like that. And the other thing that ties right into that is we don't think about what we're worth per hour. And that mentality, if you adopted it and thought about it and really invested in it, and you knew things like cost per acquisition, and you knew numbers like, I don't know, just did P&Ls on everything you did, you would know that your time is worth money, and you would behave as such. If we thought more like lawyers and CPAs with creative endeavors in our head, and we thought our ideas were worth money, and that's the barrier to the next level for our industry. So I have bullet points. I have lots of problems.
I love that though, because I actually just wrote a blog post about work hacks, and it was, in one of the best pieces of advice I got was that we're going to be asked to do many things, just by virtue of our roles, right? So sure. The only way you can really handle the things that you need to get done is to ruthlessly prioritize. And if it's a situation of where, like, okay, so I'm going to do this random thing, but that means this very important thing that I really need to get done needs to be deprioritized. Is it worth it? And then if you attach a dollar amount to it, like if we start thinking more like consultants where, hey, my hour is worth $500
yep.
per hour. So if you're going to take 15 minutes of my time, it's going to be this much. That's a great, I love that. Ooh.
Assigning dollar values to things that don't normally have dollar values on things is a lot of the ways that over the years I have made my case to people who I've worked for. Like, I'll give you an example of, like, I would do a blog post or a social media post where I would just tag in a client, and it would be about their mission. This is one of the things I talk about a lot, is you have to understand your client's mission statements. It's so vitally important. That's how I win business in RFPs. I read their mission statements. I understand who they are and what their North Star is, and I give it back to them. You know, I frame everything along those. They give you the rules of engagement. People don't use that. So I do a lot of social media posts where I use the mission statements of clients in there, and I tag the client in there. And I will do a report to someone, and I'll say, here's your metrics on social media, and, you know, it's engagement, it's likes, it's comments, all these things. Oftentimes I deal with a small business owner, and he goes, I don't know what this means. Who cares? So then I also have this stuff off to the side where I say, well, here's a post I did about your client, and they liked it. Only 3 other people did. Who cares? They liked it, and this is how much money they spend with you a year. And he's like, you're doing a good job. So it wasn't the rest of the games, the engagement games, asking questions and, you know, comment bait stuff, which I can do like anyone else because it's just people and it's easy. You know, like I do it as just like games to prove I can all the time because it's simple. That stuff matters. In a B2B world, it matters. But I am so in the mindset now when I work for clients to be able to create social media strategies for client retention, because everybody knows this. Will, you know this. Laura, you know this. Retention is so much more important than lead gen. And we're all marketers in this room, in this virtual room. We're marketers. We live in the lead gen world. We love lead gen. It's fun. But nothing matters more than retaining the clients you already have. They pay my mortgage. They allow you to grow. They allow you to have, you know, additional, you know, whole swaths of new employees over there. So it's it's the thing that everyone thinks that social media does one thing. It draws attention to you. It's a lead gen tool. It's a neutral tool you can use for practically anything.
I love it. So you know you've already jam-packed so many tips, but I want to try to fit one last tip in there before we go into the resources section. What would be, you know, if anyone had to leave, you know, obviously you've given a ton of tactical tips and strategic tips. What would be your one tip, though, that if they had left this episode, you knew they had to go away with? What would it be?
So I'd imagine that every time I speak right, all I'm obsessed with is who's my audience, right? And I think you have a pretty varied audience, but I think that all event professionals, and if I get like really in their heads, I bet you that right in the middle, a pretty large section has a weekly meeting, okay? Fair? Has some kind of weekly meeting. In your weekly meeting, I want everybody to talk amongst yourselves and talk about the events that you have coming up, how you can create. I know this is, for a lot of you, it's going to sound cold and it's not going to sound like what you do for a living, but just bear with me. Create additional data points in your events. I want you to be able to have additional times in your events that can be empirically proven as a success. And these are the things that if you go back to once whoever your client is, I don't care if you're a caterer or a hotel or a DJ, you need to be able to create these points in the experience itself, regardless of what you do, in order to keep your client. To be able to say, it was a good event, we did good, or the client said, I think it was fine, or, you know, whatever. Those words should be banished. You want to be able to have as many empirically proven things. So if you want to create, if you're AV, you want to be able to have some polls on, you know, put a truss stick up with a 60-inch screen and pull everywhere and just put it somewhere. A friend of mine, James Morgan, had a genius idea of any event that has a lanyard, which seems like everyone I attend. I have literally 200 in a box here. Someday I'll have a thing for it, but you've got to put those, you know, those plastic things somewhere at the end of the, you know, end of the thing to recycle them. Have 4 of them and have a smiley face, a flat face, a frowny face, and a crying face. Simple. And when you leave, people put it in one of the other ones, and that's how they respond to that event. I don't care. It's another data point. It's another gauge. It's another metric. But I want everybody to really think about how they can add additional data to their events that they can look at and see, go to their clients and say, this worked, this didn't work, here's how we can improve upon that. But I don't want people to be using the phrase, this was a good event anymore. I want better.
Wow.
Yeah, that's such a good idea. That's such a good idea.
I have a ton of like little hacks on creating data points at events, but I mean, if you're a florist and someone hires you, you should ask, what's the hashtag of the event? You should. And if they go, it's this, great. Then you need to be monitoring that, and you need to be seeing that someone's going to take a picture of your work, and you get to engage with that attendee, and that's an opportunity. That is engagement that you're not, the phone's ringing, you're not picking it up. But also, if they say you don't have one, you need to be able to tell them to have one so you can do that, so you can get more interaction and more engagement and more data from the experience itself. But experiences, we're past the point of arbitrary delineation of a successful event. ROO, that's the phrase you need to be looking at now. It's return on objective. What's the return on objective? And you need to be able to quantify that in a meaningful way.
Love it. So good. All right, Laura, you want to kick it off with the end of the show with my favorite question of all time?
Yes. What is your one tip you have for event planners?
Well, that's one we just did.
Oh, sorry. I mean, what is? He was naming some resources.
He's having deja vu already.
I've been doing this too long. No, I'm just kidding. Have any
She just wants more
like,
tips, Nick. Give us more tips.
More tips. Yeah. What resources do you have for planners? And this could be, you've already named a ton already, and we've noted them. Oh, Nick is doing the old research, the resource stretch. You know, blogs, websites, people, speakers, events, pieces of event technology. What are you using? What are you following these days?
All right, I'm going to try to do this lightning round style because I have a million of them. So, always Event Manager blog. That's what I write for. The tips I give, like I'm about to give 4,000 more words in the next like couple days. It'll be out, and it's 10 strategies that you can take, and social media campaigns, like full-on campaigns, you can just take and run with and adopt. It will probably lose me more money than I even know how to do, but who cares? So always Event Manager blog. Another team that I'm working with now is called partyslate.com. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but it's an awesome resource that anybody can put up photos and descriptions of their events and host them there, so you can have a community of sharing amongst the event professionals. It's like Pinterest, but just for events, and it's an amazing resource for event planners specifically to go there and be inspired by what work that is being done out there. So I'm excited to be able to impact that product roadmap, and I'm trying to introduce a lot of people. And it's free. It's totally free. So I mean, there's zero reason for you not to do that. Technology, big proponent of Glisser. I've been a user of Glisser for years and years since it was still in the incubation. Another thing that my friend James's incubator, it was in that. Glisser is an opportunity for conferences and presenters to be able to have ongoing interaction with the attendees and the presenter in a way that is data-driven and allows you to then follow up in a meaningful way. So it's very important. The days of like, okay, raise your hand if you're is gone. Like, that's terrible. And there's a lot of other technologies, crowd mics and things that have made that go away. But I like Glisser because it extends the reach of the event beyond the event, because it allows you to conditionally respond to people after the event and make yourself more available to them. Big fan of that. On my reading list, my next book after the book I'm reading now is, let's see if I can get a pile here, is recommended by Will, Remotely Engaging. If anyone posts on Instagram a picture of a book, I will buy it. I mean, it's just that simple.
Proven by this exact thing. I remember you left a comment, and then you now are talking about it.
Yeah, I was like, bought, done. I just, if I follow somebody and I respect them, I'm like, if they say buy a book, I buy a book.
Those guys are just a quick tease. We're gonna have those guys on the show coming up in a couple episodes, so be ready.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I'll read it before that then. It's not like it's not a tome. You know, I'll be able to like really. It seems like it's very action oriented. This is an awesome book. I'm really in that for web designers. This is a very tactical book on web design that it makes a lot of sense even for small business owners who aren't in web design. And I met Philippe. He has an agency in London. I just met him last year and when I was in Europe, and it's phenomenal. Let's see. This is a book that I've reread a couple times, Social Physics. I believe that if you're an event planner specifically, all you need to do in order to get better at your craft is study psychology, and this is the weird one, architecture. I really believe if you focus in those two areas, it's a weird idea I have, but if you focus in those two ideas on how people think and then how people react to environments that you can control and create, that's events. So I read Architecture Digest and I read Psychology Today. I mean, it's my little weird, way to do it. Okay, another book. Clark Allen, he's an event designer in Charlotte. This is about his trajectory as from a DMC to in the 80s, before when that word wasn't even like used that often, to being an event designer, and how he lost his wife to working and the way he worked, and he lost his team, and he lost his biggest client, Oprah, which he got a lot of press about, and how it transformed how he had his business, and now he creates and enables his team to be, basically better than him. And he had a complete paradigm shift in the middle of his career, and he is extremely inspiring. I get to talk to this guy on the phone, and it absolutely blows my mind. Any opportunity I have to pimp Meryl Snow, I will. If you are a venue or a caterer, you need to read Meryl Snow's books. They are extremely tactical. Every chapter should be a sales meeting for you. Just got this book gifted to me. I'm really into gifts as ways to network with people and to break through noise and to be remembered. I am kind of researching a lot of that stuff now. That's why when you saw this little thing, I was trying to figure out if how possible it is to make that for people. I'm looking at creating custom baseball cards for people. Like, I have a lot of different projects I'm trying to think of on that, but I really am into you have an exchange with somebody and you go off after you talk to them and you buy a book on Amazon and you send it to them. Like, I think it's an easy thing you can do. It's very tactical, very repeatable, but I'm really in the mindset right now of gifts as a way to connect and network with people and be remembered. That was probably a lot. People, I mean, I could just name drop all day.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's on your shirt?
Yeah, sure. I mean, geez, that was subtle, right?
If you weren't going to bring it up, I was going to. So
marketers can't be subtle, and I'll tell you who can't be subtle is nonprofits. We can't afford it. We're always the ones shaking the cans, right? So I am on the board of an organization called the Search Foundation, which is an international nonprofit that raises money for event professionals in crisis. I say that a lot. I'm pretty good at it now. What it means is anyone at all in the event industry who is experiencing a hardship that is got in the way of their ability to earn an income enough to be able to sustain their livelihood, flooding, cancer, not as big as that, it's just that you lost your job, you're in between, whatever it is, something that actually impacts your life that makes it so that you need help, you can reach out to the Search Foundation and we'll write you a check, depending on our, I guess what we have at that point. So we take in donations from events and associations and independent events that raise money for us. We have corporate donors, and right now we're in the midst of a campaign called the Search 100, and that is 100 companies who have pledged to give $100 per month in perpetuity, and these will be basically our angels. And we have a number of different ways that we're going to celebrate the 100, including at the conferences that we're at. We're going to have a private events that are only available to 100. I can name drop companies that are in it if you want. I mean, it's Biz Bash and Penton, and locally here I've got Event Source and Ghost Lights and Joe Minio, but it's Michael Cerbelli, and it's a lot of really good people with great hearts who happen to also be amazing at what they do. It's pretty often that those are hand in hand. Sasha Souza is another example. I don't want to list them all because we're almost out. We need about 25 more and we'll be there. But yeah, I'm PR and marketing chair and on the board, and I speak, go do speaking stuff for Search, and I'm a Search 100 member, and I give as much as I possibly am able to do, because like my story began, everything I have has just been a gift from people in the event industry, and I can't give back to those people because they don't need my help, so I have to give back to the people that do.
Awesome. I love it. I love it so much. I mean, just an impressive amount of resources. I'm adding most of these to my wish list to read all those books and check out all those resources. I especially like the hybrid between psychology and architecture. I mean, that was just so interesting.
Yeah.
So
unproven. Yeah, it's unproven. And also, if you just want the funniest book you'll ever read in the event profession, this book is amazing.
I've read that.
It's so good. Number 8 is one that I have I've been using for about 3 years now. So this is a lot of ways to look like you're paying attention when you're not really in a meeting. But number 8 is just ask to go back a slide. That's all you have to do. Don't pay attention for an hour. Just say, "Excuse me, could you go back a slide?" And they go, "Yeah, no problem." And you just shake your head and you go, "Okay," and you're good. So if you wanna survive some bad meetings, this is how to do it.
Wow.
Wow.
Amazing. We have filled up the entire hour, a little bit over, but it was so good. It was so full. I just couldn't stop the show. Absolutely amazing episode. Nick Borelli, the Chuck Norris of events, for sure. He's so legendary, and he definitely built himself into the event professionals lore, for sure. So we are just so excited. Thank you so much for being on the show, Nick. It's just been such an honor, so educational.
Thank you, man. I consume the show myself, so it's just fun to be able to add to it.
Well, we appreciate you for being a watcher as well.
Thanks.
Awesome. Well, that's our show for this week, everyone. Make sure to tune in next week. We have an amazing one lined up again. Again, it's going to be a surprise for you guys. Go check out www.event-icons.com if you want to learn a little bit more. But we're going to get out of here, and we will see you guys all next week.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of #Event Icons. To catch the transcription and all of the resources mentioned, head to www.helloendless.com/blog. This week's episode will be posted and available by next Tuesday. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway and join the Twitter conversation sponsored by Alex Plaxon and Little Bird Told Media. Just tag your post with #Event Icons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on #Event Icons.